Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to today's eTail webinar, Customer Loyalty in an Era of Digital Disruption. My name is Adam Skinner, and I'm the Content Director for eTail, and it's really great to have you with us today. So just to kind of set this up, we're all operating in what people call the attention economy. Your customers are constantly surrounded by messages, offers, and content across every channel and device. Now, in that kind of environment, just pushing out more campaigns, more promotions, and more noise is not enough to win their loyalty. What we know that does make a difference, and what we're here to explore today, is how brands can create personalized, seamless experiences that actually feel meaning to customers. So, what this means is experiences that are consistent, whether they're on your website, your app, or in store, experiences powered by data and AI, but still rooted very much in trust, storytelling, and authenticity, and experiences that move loyalty beyond points and discounts into real relationship building. So that's what we want to unpack today in a nutshell. And to help us unpack that, I'm thrilled to be joined by two brilliant speakers. So joining me today, I'm thrilled to say, is Desi Rubin-Seeley. He is head of UX at Victorinox.
Hello,
So
hey.
Hey, Raymond, Desi. So they are a brand with a rich heritage and a strong identity, now engaging customers across multiple touch points and channels. Desi will bring a UX and customer journey lens to turning brand values into real experiences. I'm also thrilled to be joined by Lara Compton. Lara is SVP of Global Marketing at SheeID.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Lara. So, yeah, SheeID is a company focused on helping brands build direct permission-based relationships with verified high-value audiences. So today, Lara will bring the data, identity, and personalization perspective and explain to us how that translates into loyalty in practice. From our side, we have been speaking with retail and brand leaders across our community, as we do all the time. As you may know, we produced an array of research projects that look at where organizations are investing, what's working, and where the challenges remain. Now, I won't give away too much right now, but throughout this session, I'll be weaving in some of the insights from our latest eTail reports, including what leaders are telling us about personalization, loyalty, strategies, and the role of AI. I'll be using those as a springboard to put specific questions to both Desi and Lara. So the format today will be very simple, conversational, and of course, incredibly insightful. Throughout the session, what we'll do is we'll share insights from some of those research projects that I've talked about, and also the conversations we've had with the wider eTail community. As we go, we'll try and join those dots between the insights and real-world examples. And by the end, you should have a much clearer view of how to shift from transactional loyalty programs to strategies that are truly customer-centric. So let's get started. I think that's probably enough from me. What we're going to do is we're going to kick things off by looking at how loyalty programs can risk becoming just another discount mechanic, and specifically what it takes to turn them into something more strategic. So we know from our research that this is something that many of you are already running. Loyalty programs is something that many people in our community are already running, but it does remain a persistent challenge. And brands, they need to move from loyalty programs as a tactic to customer-centric strategies. So just to give you an idea before, Lara, I have a very important question for you, but just to give you some background from our own research, our recent eTail playbook revealed that 84% of respondents have some sort of loyalty program already. But when we speak to leaders in the community, many are worried these programs slip into just being a discount channel. So what I'd love to do is talk about how retailers can move from that points-based loyalty programs, again, to one that is based around the customer lifecycle journey. So the question for you, Lara, is how do you prevent loyalty programs from becoming just a discount?
Great question, Adam. And I could listen to you talk all day, so don't worry about that.
That's great.
When when I saw this question, and as I've been working in the loyalty space for so long, I think back to the first loyalty program I think I was part of, which was at my local grocery store, and we had that key fob that you had to use to scan every time you went to the store and got your groceries, and you'd get a discount off on a select few special items at the grocery store. Um, it hasn't in a lot of cases, brands haven't changed a lot of their strategy. Um, since that time, right? We're still using coupon codes to get some of our most loyal customers in the door. And think about, um, how many times you're on a website and you get a 10% pop-up as for signing up as soon as you like literally land on the web page. That's almost the same as that key fob back in the day. And we really, as marketers, we need to really think about where and how loyalty programs can and should be leveraged. We need to put data at the core of these programs and think about loyalty not just as a program, but as an overarching strategy for the business. Loyalty programs can be a conduit for collecting customer data about your most valuable customers. Essentially, it is a tactic for building a truly customer-centric organization, one where the brand revolves around the needs and anticipations of their customers. When that happens, you don't have to rely on discounts. You don't have to rely on those 10% off pop-ups. You don't have to rely on those 25% off emails. You can leverage all different types of tactics like early access to new products, adjusting the product market mix based off of what information you're gathering about those most valuable customers, and building those products that fit their needs, providing priority appointments and or support in order to make sure that they feel seen and heard and understood, that their time matters. Complimentary care, or things like free shipping and extended warranties, and subscription bundles that make it so that they get to maximize their product or service from your brand. When loyalty programs, when companies use data as a strategic asset, when it's collected and activated, these decisions can you can make decisions about everything from where product design is happening to where inventory allocation is occurring, and you're rooting your business in insight, not just instinct. And that can help brands move away from that discounting strategy for programs and leverage it as a holistic engine for the organization.
Mm. I really like that thought, Lara, and I know that Adam's probably going to jump in right now as well. But you've just generated more thoughts within me. So, and at Victorinox for us, it's very similar because loyalty isn't about discounts for us. It's always been about value. I mean, Victorinox have always wanted to make sure that they can create premium products and have a premium experience, whether that would be in the physical world or whether that would be in the digital world. And of course, loyalty, thrives really well in the digital space, of course, because we're able to use so much more strategical tactics, like you've mentioned, especially when it comes to using data. So for us, we use first-party data, like permission data, of course. I know we're going to get into that a bit later on in our discussions with our Q&A, but then we want to try and activate that across our journey for our customer. So our loyalty efforts really aim to try and reflect the same kind of precision and thoughtfulness that we put into our products. So that's really kind of like where we stand. So from our customers' perspective, we want them to kind of like see the products as being durable, meaningful, personal, and hopefully I'll be able to remember to share some experience on what that means for some of our customers later on today. But yeah, we really want to make sure that that loyalty from a Victorinox perspective becomes an experience, right? Not just a markdown from that perspective. So I really love your thought there.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's great. Thanks to both of you for such a brilliant answer to that question. That's a really good start. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And I want to talk about, if you don't mind, about what a true loyalty strategy, sorry, looks like in practice, and specifically, Lara, from SheeID's perspective, and also with the brands that you work with.
Yeah, for sure. Super good question. So, at ShareID, we pride ourselves in partnering with brands at every stage in their kind of customer lifecycle journey. Lifecycle marketing is a commitment and it takes time to get it right. And consumer expectations are constantly evolving. Don't forget, we've got board involvement, we've got market involvement, we've got economic conditions, and this whole AI thing too. Everything is shifting pretty rapidly, and those needs and expectations of our consumers and our business conduits, we need to be able to ebb and flow with those demands. So this strategy really can't be rigid. It must remain fluid in order to support the needs of the customers and the needs of the business. And so we think about our customers and the stages of their strategies in three different perspectives here at SheeID. We've got crawlers, we've got people who are putting together evergreen offers for high value segments. They're driving campaigns with awareness to these select offers. Then we've got the walkers. We've got people who are creating and leveraging a 365-day marketing calendar that celebrates these high value segments with milestones. As an example, for students, that might look like a back to school or a spring break or celebrating them after the big rugby game at their university. Or graduation. There's all different things. I tried to throw in a European example there. I don't know if you caught that. But we want to make sure that we're connecting with those consumers wherever they are in their milestones and helping those brands hit those journeys and reflect on those journeys. And then we're also helping those brands using permissioned data to automate those touch points through one or more of your marketing technologies tools. So everything from your email marketing automation to your CRM to simply an SMS program. We have 400 different marketing technology solutions that we can support brands with this data and help them along their strategy. And then we've got our runners. Those are the people that are using automated permission data to load this information directly into their CRM or CDP to leverage this across all of your customer touchpoints. Thanking somebody for their service at your point of sale, or sending them a direct mail piece during the graduation month, or creating customized playlists to get teachers pumped up for the new school year. Those are all different types of things that we can help brands deliver on. But it's really important to call out that not everybody needs to get to the runner state. The endpoint can be really different for each brand. And some brands, it could be economically feasible for them to hit these long-term marketing strategy goals and this level of maturity and data integration. Having that fully established and seamless customer experience and custom curated content and things like that, the ROI is like potentially there for them. While other brands might be better suited for leveraging the more basic tactics, which in itself can yield really favorable business results. There could be elements for each of these areas to progress, and we have to make sure that we're understanding the needs of those businesses, their customer demands, their resources internally, in order to make sure that we're developing the strategy that's in line for their business. It's certainly not a one-size-fits-all proposition, and it's more of a scaling of which elements are right for my brand to take on and when with each one of these programs.
That's great, Laura. Thank you. I mean, I
Yeah,
think that
for
there's
sure.
something there for everybody, right, as well. And it's really great to bring in some really great examples there as well. I think will resonate
Yeah.
with everybody. Desi, if you don't mind, I'm going to come to you as well on this, because it'd be really
Yeah.
interesting to hear about some strategies that you may have employed or seen work well at the companies you've supported as well.
Yeah, so for us, it's generally been about how do we find ways to connect the circular sphere of data. So in many cases, many organizations have come across the issue or the challenge ultimately of, and I'm gonna break this down into a few parts, right? So, but I won't take too long, I hope. So normally companies have broken it down into silos, right? But that's not necessarily something that has happened by default or on purpose. So everybody has a great idea and initiative, especially if the organization is quite large. But then what happens is that we have that human factor where we start to do things in silos, we're making great progress, we present that, and that's great, but then we forget as humans, because no one's perfect, of our sister department, who's very closely connected with what we do, who could benefit from our data, but we haven't factored in how we include their data into our own story to create a much more complete version of what a true loyalty strategy could look like in practice. So what happens is that we're basically cutting off each proverbial limb. And so by the time we get to something that could be polished, that a business could use, you're actually limping over the finish line. And I've seen that many times because you've got siloed data houses and nothing's truly connected. So you're unable to understand how the customer traverses through the journey, how they engage with your brand at different touch points. So for us, we wanted to make sure we upgraded our CRM. We've already started to look at how we automate within that too, especially when it comes to our consumers. And I'll tell you why that is in a second. So I'll get back to that, hopefully. But then, of course, we're looking at how we can make sure our CDP is working in a way in which will work collaboratively and would be, a great pairing with all of our other data houses as well. We've got so much data, which we're only just starting to completely connect and uncover. I mean, think about this for a moment. Victorinox has been around since 1884. That's a long time. So if we were to add all of our ages up on this call, I don't even know if that is. We're still younger than Victorinox, which really just goes to show what wonderful, rich history Victorinox has, but potentially how much data and information they have as well. Whether we can discover it all, whether we connect it all is another chapter, right? Another discussion even. But for the most part, now that we've kind of like discovered it, it's only really over the last maybe say 5 to 8 years, we've really started to wake up as an organization and say, right, okay, we do so many great things for the world and for our customers. We're great when it comes to sustainability, and we don't talk about that so much, but we know that's the case because when we look at our products last a lifetime. Our Swiss Army knives have a lifetime guarantee. So there's so much that can be done from a customer's perspective of how loyal they can be, because they know that they could bring a Swiss Army knife back to the store, get it sharpened, get it cared for, and they still have it and they can still hand it down to their generational family members. So this is the kind of loyalty that I'm talking about, which is the other side, because that other aspect of loyalty isn't just about, you could say, I'm just thinking about the right word for it. It's about meaning. Yes, that's the correct word. Not necessarily points or perks or discounts or, on the face of it, because that's really what it boils down to for us because of that. And we've got no shortage of brand stories and brand loyalty stories, I should say, to be more specific, because people basically have shared on social media platforms or even directly with us just how perhaps they've received a product, whether that be a Swiss Army knife or something else, from a generational family member, their grandparent or their parent and so forth. And they're still using it decades later. There was one really famous post where I think this was on LinkedIn as well as other social media platforms, where somebody held a 100-year-old Swiss Army knife up to the camera, and they basically just shared an emotional journey story about what happened to that knife, how they lost it, found it, and how it was gifted to them, how it meant so much, and we basically heard about the story. We reached out to the person and got them to come down to head office, gave them a tour of the factory, and basically was able to really look after them, because that means a lot to us as a brand, because as I mentioned, it's about meaning. So and our products ultimately are built for durability. They're built for longevity, sustainable by design. And so it's not just a marketing ploy for us. And that's what's kept, you could say, Victorinox at the forefront when it comes to that fame, that loyalty, that well-knownness for so long. Because we really believe in that. If we can market ourselves to make sure that what we do for customers lasts a lifetime, we can help them to be best prepared with whatever it is they do as they engage with our brand and use our products to help further and enjoy their own lives. So that was two sections, right? One, what we're doing with our technology and how we're connecting that at a high level, but then also the effect of what that means for our customers and how our customers are able to kind of like really just enjoy and have great experiences as they continue to utilize our brand and our brand products.
That's brilliant. I think Yeah, I mean, that's a great story as well, and I think that um, that yeah, we're kind of really getting into the meaning. I think that's a really important word, actually, Desi. So yeah, I think that sums it up really
Yeah.
quite nicely. Just to build on that, what I would like to
Yeah.
talk about next is the drivers behind the loyalty strategy.
Mm,
Like what to kind of look at what's actually driving loyalty from the customer's point of view. So
mm,
we've done some research at our end about this in our eTail playbook. When we asked leaders about the main reasons that they run loyalty schemes,
yeah.
76 said higher customer satisfaction, 62% cited higher customer engagement. And when we asked about the most critical driver of loyalty in their business overall, the top answer was convenience and speed. So
Mm,
I think this kind of paints a picture that rewards matter, but there's a
yeah.
strong belief that frictionless, convenient experiences are what really keep people coming back. So, Desi,
Mm,
I know this is very much in your world as well. So it'd be great to hear from you on other question that I have. So, from a UX and customer journey perspective, what do you see as the key drivers of a successful customer loyalty strategy? I know you've touched on a lot of it before already, but
yeah. 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 Great question, Adam, and thanks for asking that, mate. So I do think that some of those other points mentioned by other organizations is true to a point, absolutely. But for me, it starts with clarity and consistency. So, great loyalty for us from Victorinox, is basically is one where the customer actually understands what they get, when they get it, and why it matters to them. And if we can basically understand that, that enables us to make sure that when we communicate with them and when we broach or maintain contact with those customers, we do that in a way in which ensures that we're clear in how we communicate, but we're consistent in what we promise and what we deliver as well. So for us, that has been a huge successful driver for us. And in fact, that has been something that has been behind many initiatives. One very recent public initiative, such as some of you may know this, and some listening to the call or watching the webinar right now might actually be members of some of these communities. So Victorinox, there have been lots of independent spun up communities about Victorinox knives or other Victorinox products or just the Victorinox brand in general, just by fans because they love the product. And I remember when I first joined Victorinox just almost 5 years ago to be exact. So it's almost a 5-year anniversary. What I
Yeah.
noticed was that there were community groups, independent community groups that had 50, 60, 70,000 members. Unbelievable. And at that point, I didn't really understand the footprint that Victorinox had created via its legacy, via its loyalty, and so forth. So it was quite huge from that perspective. But coming back to the question specifically, as I digress, as always, Victorians, we focus on trying to reduce the cognitive load throughout that experience as well. So that consistency does involve making sure from an experience design perspective, that cognitive load is reduced. We simplify the navigation. Now we're speaking in practical terms, but then we want to integrate loyalty moments throughout that too. And that enables us to be able to make sure that loyalty or the thought of that as we kind of prime our consumer and prime our customer throughout the journey, that's something that happens naturally for them. And so instead of just kind of like hiding it in complex menus, it's just there for companies to see, for users to see, and so forth. And I say companies and users or single customers is because we are in the B2B world as well as the D2C customer facing world as well. So we are in multiple channels, even digitally and physically too. Now, the other driver, Adam, is feedback loops. So we constantly test and learn. And so as we're doing this, we're testing and learning and understanding what's working and what's not. And basically, we're trying to adjust to how user behavior, needs, and expectations are evolving over time. And so we're adjusting our strategies to try and suit that when it comes to how clear we can be, our clarity and our consistency as a principle. And so we really try to figure out what's converting or what's driving return visits or what's being ignored in terms of when we are communicating. Is this product really a hit with our consumers as much as we thought when we did the pre-testing? Because normally you want to test before and post, right? And understand and test and learn and see what the results are. So that's basically what we try to do. Understand how behavioral your habits shift and change over time, and then adjust our strategies. And for us, what supports that are things such as design systems, which really help us to make sure that our messaging and what customers see is consistent, which lends itself to something which I'll get a little bit technical with, but I won't talk about it too much. There's a principle in design called Jacob's Law, which every company has and uses, but they may not necessarily be as aware. This principle basically tells us that customers, 99% or a high 90+% of customers are used to seeing something somewhere else. So when they come and basically engage with your brand, there are some aspects of the journey or some aspects of their interaction which basically doesn't have to be relearned. So you innovate where you can, standardize where it's best, essentially. That's really the adage, I'd say, as a takeaway from here. So that helps them to basically understand trust. And so when we can basically send those signals of trust to them through that consistent and clear experience, then that makes people want to come back ultimately. And that's good loyalty.
I love that. I love the trust, the clarity, the consistency, the feedback loops. I think that that all resonates so much with me. I think one of the things that we talk a lot about on the B2B side of things is that value exchange, that you're asking the customer for this information or to do this activity,
Mm,
and you need to provide that clarity,
right.
and that trusted experience that that will do something with that information, that it's not just being captured for no reason, that you're not just understanding what their email address is, and
Mm.
then never going to email them again, or that you're not understanding what they've purchased and then not helping them to understand how to use said
Exactly. Yeah.
device.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that value exchange really has to be in place through and through, and in order to build that trust, in order to be that consistent brand, that clear, that brand that provides clarity, that brand that understands the give and take that the consumer is having. This is a relationship that the
Mm,
consumer is trying to build with most brands. It is not a a transactional situation. Even at the grocery
mm,
store, there is a need for me to go to this grocery store versus that grocery store, this gas
yeah.
station versus that gas station. And when those decisions are placed and you have two brands that are providing the similar types of products, it's loyalty, it's experience, it's trust, it's clarity that are going to win
Mm,
over that consumer every day. And
mm,
the things that we think about quite regularly is how do we make sure that those moments stay within the relationship of the brand and that consumer, that those owned experiences, we're all marketers here. We know paid, we know owned, we know earned channels, right?
mm,
Those owned channels that we have complete control over. How do we help to ensure that those relationships stay within the branded experience? Desi and his team, all of the various people at Victorinox that are responsible for different parts of different parts of those customer touch points, whether it's training retail staff on how to know what products to be matching with individuals, whether it's on the website, whether it's in those partner relationships. We're all working really hard to deliver on that owned channel experience, and you want to keep that relationship really central. There's a lot of opportunities for technology to interrupt that experience. I know
mm,
for us, we have a lot of affiliates that we're able to bring into the table to support brands, and a lot of affiliates take those consumer experiences offline to their own third party solutions, instead of keeping the consumer on the site and keeping those consumer owned channel experiences in play. in the way that the brand wants it to. And so you got to think about where and how you're leveraging technology, where and how you're leveraging those touch points to ensure you're building on that trust constantly and not eroding that trust, giving that opportunity to provide that clarity, that consistency, the expected next step in that process, every step of the way, and think about that customer journey fully on that front.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And thank you so much for shouting out the team as well at Victorinox. I'm sure if anyone, when they get to listen to this, they'll appreciate that. And it's a privilege to be part of the digital commerce team headed by a head of digital commerce. And of course, as we're doing that, all of us are working so hard to try and make sure that we utilize various different technologies, including AI, for example, as a tool, not as a replacement,
Yeah.
to really
Nope.
help us to make sure that we can be intelligent in how we pair things up with consumers and the choices that they make, whether it comes to products they're interested in or products that they actually buy. And you mentioned a fantastic illustration, and something just came to mind for me. A story somebody else told me years ago, Lara, that when it came to understanding the difference when it comes to loyalty, how can we make differences, or how can we change our mindsets to make differences? And one of them was this story, and I'll just share this very briefly. I know Adam's itching to get the next question in.
No, please, Desi,
Now,
honestly, I would love to hear it.
brilliant, awesome, awesome. I'll share it then. So basically, it's these. You imagine that you are one individual and you're walking into a high street. It's your favorite high street on the way to work, and you see two coffee shops that have just opened up, and you've not been to any of them yet. Now you go into one on day one, and you go into the other one on day two. Now, you decide to go to the second one from your third day onwards for as long as that one's open. Now, the first coffee shop, which is right beside it, they sell exactly the same coffee. They have exactly the same quality cups. The interior design is almost very similar. The music's almost the same. The ambiance is the same. The smell of coffee beans is just gorgeous in both, right? So, and the lighting, everything is perfect. The seating is fantastic in both. You cannot really split the two between each other. But why is it you as an individual or a person decides to go into the second shop than the first? It's always because of that extra touch of personalization. And that's the part where I mentioned earlier, you standardize where it's best, but you innovate where you can. Now that innovation
Yeah.
could be really simple, remembering the person's name, and that's the physical person behind the counter saying, "Hello, Adam, welcome back. Great to see you. How are you today? Have a great day at work." Whereas
Yeah,
the guy in the first coffee shop says, "Hi, good morning. Here's your coffee. Have a good day." One's a bit more
Yep.
personal than the other. And there's not much difference, but it's these things that psychologically hits a human being, and it creates meaning in a human being. And that's really what we're trying to make sure we can do with especially some of our initiatives as well. And one which I know is going to happen for us is that currently online on our victorinox.com website is that we have a personalization experience for our Swiss Army knives, our world famous Swiss Army knives. At the moment, it's in 2D. Now we recognize and we've listened to the feedback of the customer. We've listened to the market as well, and we've tried to see where the opportunities are. And our goal next year, and we've already pretty much have the experience done, is that we plan to release a brand new experience which is fully interactive in 3D, where you're able to do so much more to visualize and imagine that knife in your hands, or whether it's as a gift or whether it's for yourself. And so that's one of the things that we're continuing to do, innovating where we can, standardizing where it's best. So it's an amazing, exciting experience that I cannot wait for the public to see. And I know this
Pumped.
is something that will resonate really well with them and their view of Victorinox as a brand.
That's super exciting. Pumped to see that.
Me too.
yeah,
We designed it.
Love it.
yeah. Thank you. So just going back to the kind of drivers and levers for a second. So just, I suppose I want to talk about yeah, the main levers, things like satisfaction, engagement, and convenience. This is stuff that we came up with our own research. And I know we talked about the drivers as well, but would you agree that things like satisfaction, engagement, and convenience, are they the main levers?
I love leading questions, Adam. Brilliant. Um, to answer your question, they're definitely part of the picture for sure. But or you could say they're definitely good ones, but they're not the only ones. So you could say like a stack metric is way more valuable and way more important. So like if somebody said satisfaction, someone else said engagement, and then they try to create very extensive detailed plans or ways to adjust an experience or a service. If you're looking at a service blueprint, for example, so you look at the service process between the brand and the consumer, uh, then you're not really going to get the kind of results you're looking for, not certainly at the highest level or sustainable level anyway. So, because they don't give the full story, they don't give the full picture. So, satisfaction and convenience are hygiene factors ultimately. So I mean, they need to be there. That's important. So, it's definitely a metric that should never be ignored, and that's something that I personally would never ignore for sure, because that gives you a what. What is the customer satisfied? Yes or no? But then you want to know why. So then you want to understand the reasons below. Why did they want to come back? Because those two metrics don't necessarily, or even in combination with each other, don't necessarily guarantee loyalty. So what we've found works better is a combination of various different metrics. For example, like average order value AOV or shopper frequency or ROAS, which is definitely something that we're using all the time when we're looking at how we can continue to reach out to consumers across the digital platforms as well. I mean, if you've been to any of the major airports within Europe, say, for example, Zurich or anywhere else, or even Denmark, Copenhagen, for example, you'll see Victorinox ads, but none of them are the same. And that's because we realize that there are slightly different ways to communicate in different geographies or different locations. So we want to make sure that when we're trying to do that, these are the metrics that we measure when we're looking at how we reach out to the customers. That's really the context of really what I'm trying to say. But you also look at like margin erosion as well. That's really important for us, CLV. So and by stacking, or what I'd like to call triangulating data by stacking it on top of each other. Think of it as a visual trellis. Almost, if anyone's familiar with those pies, and they put the pastry trellises on top, especially those ones that have cherry pies. Oh, they're gorgeous. But anyway, we won't digress onto food too much because I'm hungry. So basically, imagine putting trellises of pastry on top, and then slowly but surely you'll see that all of that beautiful fruit that was boiled down and had the sugar added to it, and you just want to just munch that thing for dessert, whichever day of the week you want. Those fruits, or that tray of fruit, starts to disappear because it's covered by, well, the pastry. So that's what I mean by triangulation. By doing that with data, you haven't got one big target to hit. Now your target becomes quite finite and detailed. So now you're starting to develop more pinpoint accuracy, or at least as an organization, you're trying to develop the habits of basically hitting a target with pinpoint accuracy, or better accuracy at the very least. And that's what helps us to design with intent within Victorinox. And it helps us to basically helps our customers to be able to move through the journey when we can create experiences that mirror that, or that demonstrate that on the front end. And it's not just short term, but it's more so over the long term aspect as well. Again, we want returning consumers. We want people to continue to engage with us, right? So, but ultimately, Adam and Laura, for us, I feel it kind of boils down to a balance, to be fair, a balance of inspiration with conversion, loyalty with lifetime value. And, the magic ultimately has got to be in the blend. It cannot be in any one metric.
Yeah, I agree so much with what you said, Desi. I think that, as marketers, we have to look both internally and externally, and understanding the satisfaction and engagement and convenience, like those are our internal kind of metrics to understand. The metrics that Desi pointed out to, like AOV and shopper frequency and margin erosion and CLV, those allow us to more easily have conversations with other parts of our organization in order to understand the importance of the strategies that we're putting into play, the importance of the data, the technology, the alignment. And it allows us to more easily talk to our CFO and our CTO and prioritize our projects and initiatives in the roadmap. I think that, one of the things that we really need to think about as marketers is, again, to help loyalty move from a marketing tactic or a program, if you will, to a business strategy. We need to help our businesses think more holistically about this like liquid gold that our customers are granting us every time they choose to unite their brand engagement data with their consumer information. And we need that alignment, that trifecta, that triangulation between the marketing organization, the product and technology organization, the finance organization, to bring those ideas to life in a really, really powerful way. And the more that we can start to talk with that language, the AOV, the margin erosion, the CLV, the more we're going to get the other parts of the business understanding that priority in a way that impacts the consumer and then ultimately positively impacts the business.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you both. I think this is a subject that all three of us could quite happily talk about all day.
Yeah.
And you both speak, you both speak so well on the subject. But if you don't mind, I'm going to just move onto a different subject because I really want to talk about AI. Now, it was mentioned earlier, and AI personalization and specifically generational differences. Right now, this is a subject, it's dominating the agenda at many of our eTail events. I don't think it's just dominating the agenda at our events, it's dominating conversations across the world, right? Everybody's talking about AI, but specifically, just to go back to some of our own research very quickly, now, eTail Germany report, that showed that personalization is the main reason for exploring AI tools like ChatGPT. Now, other important factors are tailoring product recommendations, hyper-personalized content, and it lines up with research that was conducted by McKinsey that showed 71% of customers expect personalized experiences now. Furthermore, 76% feel genuinely frustrated when they don't get them. So I think, as we know, it's particularly true for Gen Z customers who have grown up with seamless digital experience. It's just something that they're used to. Not only do they want it, they expect it, and they're frustrated when they don't get it. So we received some questions from our eTail Autumn Connect attendees that I think captured this really, really well. And I'd really love to put this question to you. That question was, how does the customer journey and loyalty change when you factor in different generational shoppers, particularly Gen Z?
Great question. Gen Z expects more, not in volume, but in alignment, as we've learned. I mean, think about how technology has enabled that, subconsciously for that generation or the newer generation, is that years previous to that, is that we were limited ultimately on what we could get and how well it could be aligned to our specific needs, whereas technology now enables us to align things not just in volume but more so in the language or the desire or the intent of an individual or groups of individuals via personalization, via technology, using AI, because AI can now self-learn within the parameters of how it's programmed. Now, there is, you could say, how can I phrase this, Adam? Yes, there is two ways in how many, I understand, look at AI. Some call it artificial intelligence. Now, this is probably more so a after works, evenings, drinks conversation or debate. Is it artificial intelligence or automated intelligence? I don't know. But at the same time, what we should really understand is that this is a very smart tool that has been programmatically created for us to take advantage of, and it does things at a lightning fast pace that can be really beneficial to us as humans. And if we utilize it properly, then it levels up our ability to reach out to customers, to maximize what we can do as a brand, or even on a more tactical individual level. So you could say the people within the brand that are actually developing and doing the tasks that enable customers to make the choices that they need, especially Gen Z, for example, when it comes to that alignment perspective, such as how does a brand reflect their values, personalized with respect and so forth, and make interactions feel effortless. So these are the kind of things that, you know, AI can really help enable. And at Victorinox, we've tried to modernize how we present our brand to that generation, whether that be storytelling, making it more immersive, whether that would be content, so it's more visual, for example, and more, you could say, again, immersive as well, like I mentioned with the 3D experience being launched next year, but then also with the revamp of our website, which happened a few years ago. And if you saw the before and after, you'll see it's light years different in comparison to helping the user to be able to just focus on one thing instead of focusing on a plethora of things where they're all fighting for attention, which creates so much cognitive barriers and loads, which is a bad experience by comparison. So we've tried to correct those experiences in a website that was legacy, so to speak, 10 years old, and we hadn't updated it. So we saw the need to make sure that we could respond to this generation and the newer generations of people as well. So the journeys were smoother. But then we tried to stay true to our roots at the same time as well to make sure that we stay pivoted on your question with this answer. So the Swiss precision, for example, the built to last products as well, Adam, and also that design integrity that people see, expect, and they have in our products, whether that be across any of our categories, the Swiss Army knives, the watches like what I have on my wrist, other products as well, such as our cutlery, our kitchenware, as well as our travel gear, such as our bags and luggage as well. So all of these are done at an integral level where people can expect premium experiences across the board. But then older generations, they also may value or get value from the heritage and the function that we also communicate in our experiences as well. But by comparison and by contrast, Gen Zs, they want, you could say, immediacy a lot more because that's what technology has helped to create within them. So, for example, if you look at many very famous social media platforms, then you'll find that immediacy is right there to the point where I think they use the term doom scrolling now. And that's because you're able to find something immediately as you want it, and then you're able to go off and do what you want. So very different ways in how people behave, very different levels of expectancy, and very different, you could say, ways in which those things influence value-led design as well. Because loyalty grows when each group sees themselves in your experience. And so we try to help the customer to do that, see themselves within our brand, using our products. And that does require our user experience or our experience design to be adaptive, that flexes, really just without losing that core, as it were.
I love that so much. I think that seeing themselves in your work is so important. I think that one thing to note in particular is, and this might not be the popular way to respond to this question, but it's the way that I'm going to respond to this question is
I want to hear this.
not all customers are valuable to your business. And you know, with some of the specific generations, it may not make sense for you yet or any longer to be marketing to those individuals. So I really like, and I think Desi, you talk to this a lot, is understanding who your ICP is, who your ideal customer profile is really important. Sometimes even more important, it's understanding who your customer isn't. That
Yes.
I like to call it the negative ICP, because you can you can tend to spend a lot of cycles building strategies, building customer journeys for consumers that cost your business money, that they you know, return products regularly, they submit support tickets constantly to customer service and customer support organizations. They waste your employees on the floor's time. Those understanding who that negative ICP is just as important as understanding who your ideal customer profile is. And regardless of generation, I agree with Desi. You absolutely need to see your shoppers for who they are and show them that you know who they are. Gen Z is no different in that approach. You need to develop and define the customer journey and your touch points, as well as those moments where you want to surprise and delight them accordingly. And again, don't waste cycles and resources, building journeys for those customers that fall into your negative ICP because you're just going to be spinning your wheels instead of focusing on those customers that truly matter to you.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so, so true. That's why I was laughing when you said that. I was like, wow, I can't believe you're reading my mind, Laura. because
I love
because
it.
for us, we realized that we had to start looking at our customers from a different perspective. So many look at them from the general persona perspective, right? But then we realized we had to take a more scientific, advanced approach. And that's to look at them by behavioral intent, because behavioral intent basically is several layers beneath, and that's our core layer of us as our human psyche. So what is it we want? How do we behave based on what we want? And those kind of rules
Yeah.
never change. They've never changed throughout any generation. I mean, just think about this, regardless of the generation, whether it's Gen Z or a cohort or different kind of generation, if you lose your keys, you're hunting around your house for your keys. and
Yeah.
the only thing that changes is where you look first to last because of the type of house you live in or place you reside. But the intent is always the same. So we realized we had to understand our customers from that perspective, and then not chase the ones who were negative in ICP, but then ones who were positive. But then we triangulated that. Of course we did, because we realized that based on that, let's start to break it down by demographics and look at their interests, start to look at their other types of demographics and geographics as well, what their spend was, what their average spend was, and basically split that out by identified gender as well. And so we're able to understand actually which customers were giving us the highest source of revenue, which ones were giving us the lowest source of revenue. And then, of course, whilst your message, and you cannot necessarily control everyone exactly who you sell to or who wishes to engage in your brand because they're all humans. But then, of course, there are messages that you can tailor to so it appeals to ones perhaps who may have interests that may align, or values, as I mentioned earlier, that may align with perhaps something that you have as part of your genuine messaging. So I love the way in which you said that, because that's exactly things that we are doing ourselves, and that we want to try and make sure that we continue to refine. But as I mentioned, from a maturity standpoint, we're still quite young as an organization, even though we have done so much and come so far and have grown so quickly within that period of time. I almost feel like we've grown for every year 3 or 4 years, because of just how hard
Yeah.
we've been able to push as a team and how united we've been. And in fact, for us, I always look at how we're able to perform internally, and we kind of live up to the adage that the organization has: one team, one voice. And this is where, for us, we are really trying to work in a unified way toward the greater good, toward the bigger picture of the organization.
I love that. We're one team, one dream over here.
That's excellent.
Uh,
Just finally on that, we've kind of discussed, well, we understand, I suppose, that there are different expectations, right, from different cohorts. So I just want to ask very quickly how brands, in your opinion, can use AI and data to meet expectations in a way that still feels authentic, respectful of privacy, and
Mm,
emotionally resonant. Just to take it back to the
yeah, yeah.
AI again. Yeah, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do actually. What a coincidence. So at Victorinox, Adam, for us, we don't use AI to guess. We really try to use it to listen. We use it as a tool to help widen, you could say, the amount of information that we're able to glean from and understand. And then, of course, we overlay and feed in behavioral data as we've been collecting that, purchase patterns, but then also experience design flows as well, to understand actually what's really happening. We use analytical platforms that not only just complement but enhance, you could say, the standards of GA analytics, for example, to help us see, and this is legally, what customers are doing. So we can actually watch session replay videos of how customers are clicking around and traversing around our site. So we're able to understand more than just what they're doing, but we understand why they might be doing that. So if we identify that there are rage clicks in a particular aspect or pinch point in the journey, we can start to watch video replay to work out whether that's actually true, or whether there's a technical issue that we need to fix. So maybe the LCP or the INP perhaps isn't working very well. We need to improve that. What I mean by that is basically we've got images that are not optimized, or code that needs to be optimized so the page loads faster and the customer basically is happy with that. So there are these kinds of things that we need to make sure we factor in. So yeah, and we don't believe in, you could say, hyper targeting, because that feels a bit too creepy, right? we don't want to go down that realm, to be honest, because that's a door you can never come back through. It's almost like a trap door. So we make sure that we try to focus our beliefs in relevance, because AI can help us to identify those pain points, and a lot of the tools we use have AI combined within that as well, in order to help us facilitate those answers, help us to answer the questions that we have about our customer, improve discoverability, for example, and make sure that you could say we can surface products in a smarter way, product groupings, do that in a different way as well, use dynamic categories, for example, to help make sure that the customer sees things that are more dynamic to them in their experience, because that will always lead to better empathy as well, if we can understand what it is they're looking for, and then hopefully try to complement them in the right way using AI as a tool to help us meet the expectations the customer has. And then ultimately, we want to create an emotionally, you could say, resonant design. Now, this basically still comes from the humans, but we need to understand what that is. And AI can help support the work we do in identifying what that means for us and for them. So yes, hopefully that answers the question.
It totally does. It totally does. I think in a very like kind of pointed way, AI is only as smart as the data going into it. And the humans have to give AI the parameters by which to decision off of. And so it's our job to centralize the data, bring the data together, establish a data hierarchy. Not all data, as we know this very well as marketers, is treated equal, right? There's inferred data, there's permissioned data, there's first party data. Making sure that you've established a data hierarchy and telling AI and telling your team the importance of that data, collecting the data that you are going to leverage only along the way. Identify the cohorts that matter. Again, those that ICP, the negative ICP, making sure that you're informing the team as a whole where you need to stay focused. And then you need to make sure that you're helping and using tools that make allow the humans to work more effectively. So aligning the campaigns to the cohorts and the outcomes that you're looking to solve for the brand. Again, putting that permission data at the core of your marketing tech stack can unlock your AI in really powerful ways. More importantly, it can unlock your team to unlock the AI in really powerful ways. And just like Desi said, don't be creepy about it. Man, oh man, there's some creepy stuff that can happen. And I think finding that appropriate balance for your brand between showing the customer that you know who they are and celebrating them as an individual versus being in their face and constantly asking them, did you really not want that pair of shoes? Did you really not want this version of the Swiss Army knife constantly? At a certain point, it's going to get old. It might already be.
Yeah, I think that's such good points. It's genuinely fascinating. So thank you both.
Thank you.
I just want to shift gears ever so slightly.
Yeah.
So this is about why loyalty programs might fail, and it's based on a very simple question that has come in from our eTail community. So yeah, a lot of people have been talking about failure models and there's a lot of effort going into loyalty, but we know there are big challenges. We've discussed many of them today already. So I say a lot of people ask this very simple question, and that question was, why do loyalty programs fail?
Great question. I think generally it's because they haven't considered the full circle of what a loyalty program should provide for the customer, but also the benefit for the organization. Many just spin something up and they just do something too simple. For example, Some may just have some may base their whole loyalty program on pop-up discounts on their website, for example. And we know that in isolation it isn't enough. It's not going to get you over the hump, probably not even close, to be fair. So if you haven't considered what that whole strategy should be and how in the minds of your consumer, what equates to them as an adequate or a good value cost to information exchange benefit, because ultimately that's what we're doing, right? By us learning more about the customer and trying to tailor experiences to them to keep them loyal, we have to garner their information in some way. Again, permission based first, right? So we do that. But in order to do that, we need to help the customer to understand or have that level of trust that, okay, I'm prepared to give my information across to you, so that can be fed into your systems and you can provide the right experience. I think if some of these things aren't done in the right way or in the right order, then these are things that that ultimately mean that companies basically start to crumble when it comes to their loyalty experiences. It doesn't become strategically viable, it doesn't become profitable, and then the company in that specific regard starts to fail in itself. So if they can base it on data, permission first, grab that data, and then use appropriate systems to fulfill actually the desired outcome, as well as the problem to solve, then they're on to a winner. And I think that comes back to the formula which I genuinely use and which I've always used within the digital commerce Victorinox team. We have this formula of a desired outcome and a problem to solve. Now, most companies fail in this regard because they haven't answered one of these two questions. So what's the problem to solve? What is it that you actually want to do? Many will say, let's do this, but then is it solving a real problem? And is it actually what the customer needs? Do they even know how their customer views their brand currently, or ones who might be customers view their brand? Without that insight, you're able to really establish what the problem you're solving is, and then you're just creating something out of basically air. So you're creating a mythical strategy, presenting that to the customer and saying, well, even though this may not be what you want, we're telling you this is what you need. And that's the quickest way to break trust with consumers, because we live right now in a world where technology is doing exactly the opposite, or at least it enables brands who choose to invest to do the exact opposite, which is fulfill the customer's expectations.
Yeah, I agree completely. So I think there's from my vantage point, I think that brands, loyalty programs that fail happen because brands see it as a transactional moment, just a point in time, versus an opportunity for building that lifetime relationship, or in Desi's case, that generational loyalty, right? It also happens when brands don't understand or care about the value of the consumer data being offered up each time that individual engages with them. I also find it very telling that loyalty programs fail when they can't get alignment across marketing, technology, and finance teams to invest in and prioritize these strategies, putting permission data at the core of their marketing technology stack to help them in the decisioning process across the entire organization. This is not a loyalty program. This is a strategy in being a customer-centric organization. And everybody throughout the company needs to understand the importance of loyalty, customer loyalty in the success of that business. I said it before, I'm going to say it again. Data becomes a strategic asset when it's not just collected, but activated. When every decision from product design to inventory allocation is rooted in instinct, not in insight, not an instinct. Sorry. It's important that part is super important, but it needs to be rooted in insight and not an instinct on that front.
Absolutely. And Laura, you know what this means? It means it's story time, because you've just triggered something else in the recesses of my brain. So there was an organization that I used to work for, right? And this is really to your point, to be fair, and this validates why what you've said is so true, is that the organization I worked for, they were one of the longest and oldest serving retail organizations in the UK that were UK based. So they were heaped in tradition, and everybody basically knew of this brand. Very popular, stores everywhere, over 200 stores worldwide at one point. They had thousands of employees worldwide. They were huge as an organization. So they had over 20,000 employees plus. And again, without like necessarily naming names, unfortunately for them, the decision was made to basically base their loyalty program purely on discounts. That was it. Nothing else. Discounts. And so the premise ultimately would be that somebody would come back to me because I can offer discounts. But then guess what happened? Customers got smart because you've created a new ground zero for them. The ground zero is this. This brand will never offer me full price. Therefore, I will always look for the cheapest discount, and I will start to analyze over time at what point the company drops their price even further. So whatever the discount was, now you're dropping even. So now all of a sudden, your revenue, your profit, your P&L, that's diminishing by the minute, by the day, as it were, proverbially speaking. Yeah. But what was the result? Simply because of that kind of strategy, that meant that the organization wasn't able to survive ultimately. Now, there are other factors, of course, because of the change in times and so forth, and how customer and human behavior shifted dramatically, because this was just before the beginning of COVID, really, where everything hit, and most companies, unfortunately, were not prepared. So whilst it was unfortunate, because there were many amazing individuals that worked for that brand that I knew personally, and unfortunately, because of the overarching, you could say, strategy of just discount only, and that's how we would survive, unfortunately, that didn't really lead to the kind of success or outcome the company had hoped for. So the company ceased to exist after a while.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy.
Okay, so we are just in the interest of time. I'm going to move on. If you don't mind, like I said, I know we could talk about this all day, and I'm reliably informed we may have gone over an hour. I don't know where the time's gone personally, but apparently it has. So
we're having too much fun, Adam. I'm so sorry, mate.
Yeah,
I know. It's great. I mean, there was just one other thing I really wanted to ask you about, which I think is a really important question, and it's about the cost of doing nothing. So we've spoken at length today about this, but can brands really afford to be in status quo mode on loyalty data and experience? And what does doing nothing actually cost? I mean, I'm sure after watching this today, that's not going to be the case, but what is one small step you'd urge teams to take next?
Yeah. Pick a cohort, any key group, map their journey end to end, understand where they're dropping off, understand what you can personalize better, if that's something that's within your digital architecture, and use what you learn there to unlock other wins and other segments as well, so you can do more for your consumer ultimately. You don't have to fix everything at once. You cannot fix everything at once. That's impossible. But you do have to start with something. I always think of a visual illustration, and I'll just keep this very concise, Adam. This is where, imagine you are rudderless and you don't have any, you could say, rowing paddles in your boat. You don't have an engine, and the boat is in the middle of the ocean. Well, if you think about it, because of the current, you'll just be taken somewhere. You're not going to stay stationary just because you don't have a ways of moving your boat manually yourself. You're taken by everything else around you, the environment. And that's the cost of doing nothing. Unfortunately, everything is moving in one direction when it comes to consumer behavior, technology, and so forth. So by doing nothing in today's industry, in the context of what we're talking about, brands will just simply get left behind and they become irrelevant. So you have to do something. And that's what we do at Victorinox. We continue to refine, we optimize, we test. And even though we're a 140 plus year old company, we still feel the need to continue to make sure that we are always learning, always trying to deliver what the customer expects.
Yeah. Oh, those brands that do nothing, gonna end up like dinosaurs, extinction, man. We've seen it played out time and time again. The brands that don't evolve, that don't adapt, that don't adopt new technology, new ways of thinking, new ways of showing the customer, I see you, they fold. I personally worked at a mid-tier department store headquarters, and it's a similar story to Desi just told. The I was in headquarters when e-commerce started, and leadership felt that we could strongly rely on a website that simply showed our FSI, the freestanding insert, those inserts that go into your, Sunday newspaper showcasing what deals are at the local store. That is all that our website was allowed to showcase. There was a mass layoff in 2004, and the company completely folded in 2008.
Wow.
Wow, right? We have to, I think, as that, one small step that I urge teams to take is to understand what metrics your business, not just your team, literally your business is looking to move the needle on in this next year. Then initiate a conversation with finance, technology, and marketing all in the room and talk about what customer data marketing has at its fingertips already and how it can be used to power decisions across the entire organization. Simple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is wonderful. Thank you. I want to say a massive thank you to both of you for everything that you've shared and contributed today. It's been a truly illuminating and insightful conversation. So thank you very much. Just very quickly before we wrap, if you do have any final thoughts that you'd like to leave the audience with, then you can speak now. Is there anything that you would? Yes, please do. If you have any final thoughts, please, yeah.
Yeah. Speak now, forever hold your peace.
I think we shared. Oh, go ahead, Betsy.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead. Please do, Laura.
I think we shared a lot of fantastic insights throughout this conversation. And thank you, Adam, for having us. Thank you, Tessie, for being here. Again, I want to reiterate this. Data becomes a strategic asset when it's not just collected, but activated. When decisions from product design to inventory allocation is rooted in insight, not an instinct. And I think that that's just such a powerful message for all of us marketers and everybody else listening to this call to understand and to centralize those conversations quickly around the customer data.
Love that. That's fantastic. And as design leaders, I'll share it from this perspective, really. We're not just crafting interfaces, especially when it comes to, loyalty. We're trying to shape trust. Loyalty doesn't happen just because of, points or pop-ups and things of that nature. It happens because people feel understood, right? They feel valued. They feel respected throughout the complete journey. And that's really important. That's key. So my takeaway ultimately is this, and I encourage everyone who's watching and listening to really think about the following. Stay present, be curious, design with intent, and test with humility, because you will be wrong. Data never lies, right? That's why you say no data, no truth. So build systems that flex with, with the customer's intent, with their expectation, rather, without losing the core of who you are and who you stand for as a brand. The strongest experiences ultimately, like the strongest products, they're the ones that are built to last. The question is, will you be?
Love it.
Wonderful. That's brilliant. Thank you again to both of you. And I would like to thank everybody who has watched and joined the session as well. Just so you know, we'll follow up with some links to any research that we've discussed and some further resources from SheeID, I believe, as well. And if there's anything that we may have missed, I don't think there is. I think we covered so much today, but we can always follow up afterwards. So once again, thank you to Desi, thank you, Lara, and thank you for everybody for tuning in. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, guys.